Fractal's launching a new line of cases today. The Pop cases. They really pop. Fractal feels the hurt in your wallet, and they're trying to give you a build alternative that's not quite as expensive as some of their other offerings. And I have to say, they've done some pretty clever things. Let's take a look. This is the Pop Mini, Pop Air Mini. Why is it the Pop Air Mini? Well, mesh front, tempered glass side panel, 240mm radiator in the front. But wait, what is this madness? There's a drawer. Okay, the drawer is secondary. There's two 5¼ bays. This is a case for micro ATX motherboards or ITX motherboards that'll fit a full-size ATX standard power supply, has two 5¼ bays in the front, and you can fit a 240mm radiator in the top or the front. I actually get a little creative with the top. We'll come back to that because the mounting gets a little weird. For the top I/O, you've got headphone, microphone, two 5GB USB ports, Type A. There's an optional Type-C kit, so it's a cost-saving measure. If you want Type-C, you got to pay extra for the Type-C kit to add to the case because it makes the case dramatically less expensive. And this doesn't feel like a traditional Fractal case. The metal is noticeably thinner, I think, than on some other Fractal cases. However, the finish, the fit and finish is really, really good. It feels like a thick powder coat. And then, of course, it's got other little details we've come to expect from Fractal. They've done a pretty good job. And the texture on the front, this is metal. Combination dust filter, it's patterned, washable, vacuumable. You've got some options there in terms of how you want to clean this, and of course removable. The top is a magnetic dust filter, which, you know, admittedly is not as fancy as other Fractal solutions. It's an inexpensive solution, if you catch my drift, but it's perfectly serviceable. It would be nice if they had some kind of an option that didn't restrict airflow, because if you're exhausting air out the top, you really don't need something like this that's going to effectively serve as a dust filter. But hey, it's fine. This is a micro ATX motherboard with 4 expansion slots at the back. Sometimes you see 5, so that, you know, if you have a micro ATX motherboard with a by 8x8 configuration, you can have a 2-slot GPU hanging off the end of the motherboard. That's rare, but you do see it, and so I'm calling that out specifically. The side panels have captured thumb screws, so if you take the thumb screw all the way out, you did it wrong. Tempered glass. It's not Lexan or plastic or anything like that for cost savings. There is several versions of this available with multiple colors, as we'll see in a second, but your motherboard standoffs are pre-installed, and you've got a cable offset. There's no rubber grommets or anything like that. Again, makes sense, cost savings. Folded edges, a really wide fold at the front for extra rigidity, stamped. Some flex in the side panel, but really honestly not a lot. The motherboard cutout is very large. You've got plenty of cable routing options. You've got two 2.5-inch mounting bays here. There's two 3.5-inch mounting bays here behind your 5.25-inch bays. But if you're going to use the full length 5.25-inch bays, you will have to take out the 3.5-inch bays that are located here. So you can put your 3.5-inch drives in from this side, or 5.25-inch bays in from this side. But unless you're using a really short depth 5.25-inch bay, such as our IC dock, you know, SATA dock here, you will have to remove those 3.5-inch drive bays because there's just not physically enough room for everything. Not to worry though. Check this out. Just a single thumb screw holds in your 3.5-inch drive bay, but you take this out entirely and then boom, you've got a lot more room for your 5.25-inch drives. So taking the one out on top has completely freed the bay, and I still have my one 3.5-inch drive below that. Of course, if you want to use a hot swap enclosure like this, or you know, the 4-drive NVMe enclosure or something like that, you totally can. And you don't have to worry about really just terrible, the look of terrible 5.25-inch devices, you know, ruining the aesthetic. You can add the magnetic cover back. It's a nice little magnetic door. Your case hides some secrets.
It's full of secrets.
You can also use the 5¼ inch plastic accessory drawer along with the 5¼ inch bay adapter, as I've done here. 16 terabytes. Those are 4 terabyte Samsung SATA NVMe. 16 terabytes in the front of this. I'm thinking this is a great inexpensive case for home server. It's got 3 RGB fans, 120mm. They are addressable RGB. There is a modest RGB controller that is built into the top hub here, but remember this is based around our ASRock rack AM4 motherboard, an expensive plucky little AM4 CPU, up to 16 cores in this form factor. There is no more affordable, faster server option than AM4, and AM4 wasn't really designed for that, but you can get away with it. And turning your old AM4 CPU into a home server in an inexpensive case such as this with 5¼ inch base, so you can have hot swap drives if you want. You can have removable, multiple removable SATA drives if you want, rather than screwing them into the case. Whatever you want to do that's more server-ish, this case is going to support that. Now, of course, it'll support regular desktop use cases as well, but 5¼ inch bays, they're coming back in vogue. That's actually what excited me about these. And, Fractal said, hey, we're going to release these. Take a look at the PDFs. You want us to send you some? I said, are those 5¼ inch bays? I was like, yeah. It's like, they're not dead. Oh, send it, send it. Oh, there's one other thing that I almost forgot to mention. Note the placement of the radiator screws here and here. It should be pretty good clearance for your motherboard, but included in the box are extended radiator brackets. This is a common feature of the Pop series. What these do is these will screw into your radiator, and then this will screw into the top of the case, and this lets you offset mount the radiator a little bit so that you get better clearance either from the back or from the motherboard, depending on how you orient this thing. So you would be able to use some pretty interesting stuff in terms of radiator mounts for the top with these offset brackets. Let's go over the numbers for the Pop Air Mini. So for the front radiator, Fractal says 240mm is the max. The rear radiator is 120mm fax. You've just got the 120mm fan here. You could put a 120mm radiator there. That's fine. The maximum length of the PSU is 150mm. The Pop Air Mini is the 365mm max GPU length, or the silent. There's a silent version of this with a solid front, and it's going to breathe a little differently. That is 340mm instead. And the max CPU cooler height is 170mm. There is also a dust filter for the power supply at the bottom. However, the power supply can be mounted in either orientation. So if you prefer the power supply to pull air in from here and exhaust out the back, you can do that. Or if you prefer for the power supply to pull fresh air in from the bottom and exhaust the back, that's my preference, then there is a dust filter there for that. Now, as you think about different builds for this, the user guide that Fractal puts together has a lot of different build ideas. You definitely should check out the manual because it shows you different options for radiator mounting and so on and so forth. For example, if you notice, the fans are actually mounted on the outside of the case, and this plastic cover is pretty thick. That means you could mount the radiator and a set of fans behind that for a convenient push-pull configuration, even in this relatively compact case. I can already tell you that for micro ATX motherboards and micro ATX builds, especially something that is not super crazy expensive, this is already one of the best options here because of the 5¼ inch bays, because of the clever stuff in the construction, especially if you're doing something like this. Because when I was building this, I was looking for clever, inexpensive micro ATX options, and well, I ended up with the extruded aluminum. Which isn't bad, don't get me wrong. I mean, this looks cool, and it's cool to carry it around like this, but this is a little more traditional. This is the Pop Air, and it inherits almost all of the features from the Pop Air Mini, except it will fit a standard size ATX motherboard. 7 expansion slots, a standard size ATX power supply cutout, and colors. Yes. By the way, this thing's launching with a bunch of different colors. I got lime green, which suggests that we're doing a build, and oh boy, we are. Like the Mini, there are 2 5¼ inch bays at the front. It comes with a drawer, an accessory drawer, which I will never use in my build. Look at that! It's so glorious! Tempered glass side panel. These also come with the extended radiator offset brackets, so you've got some options with how you mount a radiator in the top in terms of clearance. And the layout at the bottom is pretty much the same. There's 2 3.5 inch bays here in sleds, plus your 5 1/4 inch bays. If you want to use the full length 5 1/4 inch bay, you're going to have to take out your 3 1/2 inch bays. But this ATX size case gives you one option the Mini doesn't. If we take out one of our 3 1/2 inch drive sleds, they're just the same, both of them. We can mount it here in the wire management tray. There's probably, if they were creative, they probably could have fit 2 drives in there, but that's okay. There's room enough for 1 mechanical hard drive and 2 5 1/4 inch drives. So think about like the IC dock accessories, or there's some cool stuff on Newegg where in a 5 1/4 inch bay you can fit a toolless hot swap for a 3 1/2 inch drive, a 2 1/2 inch drive. Gives you more USB ports, plus a micro SD card reader and some other stuff. And that probably doesn't really cost much more than the USB-C accessory that Fractal will sell you for this case. And that'll give you a lot more fun options for doing things with your case because of the 5 1/4 inch bays. I really love seeing 5 1/4 inch bays. I really love that they put them here at the bottom. I wish this was here. This was an option in like the Define XL for my Threadripper builds. There's 2 5 1/4 inch bays at the top, but it's usually a pain to build that way with radiators and everything else. Really hope there's a Define coming where they put the 5 1/4 inch lessons learned at the bottom. I think Fractal's going to sell a lot of these. As with the Mini, the motherboard tray is pretty much the same. There's a sort of a slightly raised area here with a cutout for your cables. There's no rubber grommets or anything, but it does include some Fractal Velcro cable management ties. The front panel is designed with a power button and another button that you could use for RGB or reset or whatever. USB, 5 gigabit, and then the optional easy to install Type-C at the end. Plus you got a headphone microphone, separate jacks. The sizes and fit and finish for this case are almost the same as the Mini in terms of clearances for different things. It will fit a 280mm radiator in the front, so that's a pretty nice upgrade. You've got a 120mm max radiator at the rear, just like the Mini. The maximum length of the PSU on this one's 170mm, so you got a little bit more room to breathe down there. The GPU max length is 405mm on the Pop Air and 380mm on the Pop Silent. And just like the Pop Mini, you can do offset mounting for your radiator. You can also mount the fans on the outside and it'll breathe through the front, in addition to radiator and then a pull set of fans on the back. So you can have a push-pull radiator configuration with that 280mm radiator and not really give up a lot of GPU space. The max CPU cooler height is 170mm. This case also comes bundled with 3 Aspect 12 120mm Fractal fans, ARGB, 1 at the rear, 2 at the front. Okay. Now, for this one, for the lime green, suggests I have an idea for a build, don't I? Introducing the Razer Z690 Tai Chi. So this is ASRock's Z690 Tai Chi, but the Razer edition. So it's got the chroma RGB and everything else. I'm gonna put this in there. And I may actually end up giving this away in a future video. So we're going to do a build video with this. Be on the lookout for that on the level 1 forums. We're going to give this away in the level 1 forum. So be on the lookout for that. It might just be the case in motherboard. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to... I don't know. We'll see. I'm still in the planning stages. But violent green plus violent green equals happy build? I don't know. We're going to see. But real excited about this. Alder Lake's nice. Alder Lake's fast. And I gotta take a look at this motherboard and we gotta go through the BIOS and hook up all the RGBs and we'll just see how it goes. Last, but certainly not least, at least when we're talking about mass, volume, expense, this is the Pop Air XL. This is the ultimate low-cost, I've got a big motherboard build. If you follow the channel for a long time, you know that we're big fans of Fractal cases for workstation builds. And the reason for this is because they have a lot of airflow. This case doesn't have as much airflow. It's not bad, but yeah. But also this case costs like less than half of some of the other builds. We did a build for Greg Crow Hartman, number 2 on the Linux kernel. And we opted for the Fractal Torrent for that because it gets the job done for 2 64-core processors. If it gets the job done for 2 64-core processors, the fastest server processors on the planet right now, it's going to get the job done for your build. This will also get the job done for your workstation Threadripper build. I don't know that I would use this for a dual processor server the same way, but this case will support XL ATX and eATX. There's 8 expansion slots at the back. There's also getting ready to be a flood of Threadripper 5000 on the market, and so maybe the people that bought Threadripper 3000 will be upgrading to 5000 because it's been almost 2 years. Maybe not. I don't know. But if you get a good deal on a Threadripper 3000 system, this actually would be a pretty good case. You'll probably need to add a little bit more cooling, but ow. Fractal's got you covered by bundling not 3, but 4 A12 120mm fans. 360mm in the front. Yes, that does mean you can use a 360mm radiator in the front, but notice you've got holes if you wanted to do a 280mm mount as well. At the top, you can also do a 280mm mount, which is an upgrade over this case's smaller siblings. The rear also supports a 140mm fan, an upgrade over the 120mm. Even though the metal of the side is thinner, you can tell it has a nice powder coat on it. It's a nice durable finish. I mean, I've been kind of rough with these, with the unboxing and the reboxing and the build and the unbuild and the blah blah blah, and they still look pretty good. Now for this, the situation's a little different. You still have two 5¼ inch bays, and you still have two 3½ inch bays behind them that you can relocate, but the tray will actually support both of those 3½ inch drives. It comes with three 3½ inch drive trays, one here and two in the bottom, so you can pull both of those out and have one extra, and still fit two 3½ inch mechanical hard drives, and still have both of your 5¼ inch bays. If you only want to use one 5¼ inch bay, or you're using a really short accessory, or you don't mind not having the magnetic door on the front, then you can mix and match here and fit four 3½ inch drives. You'll have to get another tray, but I like the flexibility. I like all the options. Also, the rear here, these expansion slot covers, you can't really tell, these are extra wide, and that's nice because you could do like the vertical mount that takes up all of this area. I think they might be working on an accessory for that because I see a screw hole for that. I don't know if that's coming or not, but that's nice for breathability. So if you get like the 3090 and you take out, 3 of these slot covers and it's basically just a big open vent, there's no extra little metal brackets or metal parts of the case that are there to impede airflow. It'll just be open when you take out those expansion slot covers. These fans, even though they are all white, are also ARGB. The Type-C connection is optional with this case, just the same as all of the other cases. The front panel stuff is exactly the same. You can tell that Fractal has really standardized on the components that go with these in order to try to keep costs down. Just like all the others, the front is metal, or the front grille is metal, and it's little bent tabs into plastic. If you wanted to pop the metal out of the plastic, you can just unbend the tabs and then paint this or do whatever sort of crazy mod that you wanted to do with this, and that'll work fine. Magnets. So many magnets. Now, even though this case is XL, it still comes with the radiator offset mounts for the top. So if you want to get a 280mm radiator for the top and offset it some to the side or the front or whatever, you can use those offset mounts in order to do that. So this will support ATX motherboards up to 280mm and 360mm max for the front radiator, 140mm for the rear, and 280mm for the top. Of course, the offset disclaimer notwithstanding. Maximum length for your PSU is 205mm. For your GPU, it's 455mm in this case, or 430 in the Pop XL Silent. Yes, there is another version of this case that's silent, and that's not going to be a mesh front in that case. The max CPU cooler height on this one is 185mm, so this is quite a lot more room pretty much everywhere. At the bottom, the gap, the CPU cooler, the top. It makes sense. It's a bigger case. It's designed for a bigger machine. Now, if you're spending $3,000 plus on your ultimate Threadripper system, does $100 extra for a case really make that much of a difference to you for your build? I mean, in the case of the other cases, see what I did there? It is a case of spend more, get more. But if you need a cost down option, or somebody is giving you a hand-me-down Threadripper system because they think you're awesome, well then, this is not a bad choice. This is a pretty good case. I'm surprised it's as good as it is at the price point that it is in mid-2022, with all of the money printer go burr and you know, societal upheaval and that sort of thing going on. Love those captured thumb screws. There are still little details here. I mean, Fractal didn't cut every corner they possibly could. There are still rubber standoffs for the power supply at the bottom as a kind of anti-vibration measure. There are still Velcro cable ties. There are still RGB options. You still have mounting trays, you know, for your dual 2.5-inch SATA SSDs if you want to keep them out of the way. Conveniently behind the motherboard. If I were building systems for friends and family and I wanted to save a few bucks, this would probably be my go-to cases. I mean, there's a lot of competition in the standard ATX size case, but for workstation cases, there's really not, and this is very, very impressive for what it is. And for micro ATX, there are a lot of people that want the awesomeness of an ITX build, but they don't want something that's super compact and that's going to melt because everything's running at 100 degrees C. Micro ATX is a reasonable, viable option, and Fractal already immediately out the gate has one of the better micro ATX options on the market right now, in my opinion, with the Pop Mini. So overall, I'm pretty excited with the launch of this family of cases. They give you a lot of room to work. They don't break the bank. They give you some pretty good features. Time will tell how the fans hold up and how the fans actually work, but bundling 3 fans with these, it's not likely that you would need to buy extra cooling, except maybe if you were building a high-end system in something like this. But, you know, you're spending so much money that the cost of a fan or two doesn't really matter. For a low-cost system based around a typically lower-cost micro ATX motherboard, especially some of those middle-of-the-road B660 motherboards that we took a look at, this case would be a pretty good choice. And it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look low-end, and you got some pretty cool features. So overall, Fractal's really pulled a rabbit out of their hat with these, I think. It's impressive. I'm Wendell. This is Level 1. I'm signing out, and you can find me in the Level 1 forums. Oh, if you want to see builds with these, let me know. Give me some ideas. Hang out on the forum, post a comment, whatever you want to do. I definitely want to do a giveaway with one of these. I don't know if I can get to the point where I build an entire system out of it. We could basically probably build a last-gen system or give away something based on that Tai Chi Z690, but I might not be able to do a full system with that. I don't know. We'll see. All right. I'm signing out, and I'll see you in the Level 1 forums. Let's hang out. Let's chat. Call me. Something.